Chapter 8, Section 3, the first political parties. So, our essential questions in this section are going to be very basic. How and why do the first political parties begin? And basically what the difference is between them. If you were with me in class, we thought, what do you think of when you hear about political parties? And you probably think about maybe some images like this one. And so, which symbol stands for which party? It's pretty straightforward. Most people can get this, and it is the elephant resembles and reflects the Republican Party, and then the Democrat is the donkey. Don't get hung up on the 3 stars and the 4 stars. But most of you do think of politics, you think of these images. We have to explore, where does it all start? Okay, and in the video that I kind of shared out with you, it hopefully addresses those questions of how and why political parties begin. And in politics, just like it is in life, people have different points of views. They have different opinions, and they have different opinions on numerous topics. And they start to form themselves into groups where they share certain ideas that they support, and they also share things that they are opposed to. And what they begin to do during the early part of the American history is these people are referred to as factions. And these factions will become the beginnings of the first political parties in the United States. So the very first political parties in the United States are not the ones that we currently have today. So let's look here. They are the Federalists. The Federalists are headed up by Alexander Hamilton and John Adams. And then we have the opposition, which we've spoken about before a little bit as we've talked and read, is that we have these group known as the Democratic Republicans, or more simply, they're referred to as Republicans. Now, don't get them confused with today's Republicans, because they do not have the same beliefs, and I don't want you to think of that. So the beginnings of the Republican Party are led by Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. So you can sort of see some of these people were on the same side when the creation of the Constitution was. Like Hamilton and Madison, they were definitely strong Federalists at the time, but Federalists at that time were people who wanted the Constitution adopted. So remember that 2 of these men are actually in Washington's first cabinet. Hamilton, of course, is at Treasury. Jefferson is at the State. And so these 2 men constantly begin to bicker and argue, and they eventually both resign. So first Jefferson and then Hamilton. Now, I did share out with you this Google slide presentation, which you watched the video that explained the differences between the first parties, and I think it does a nice job in a short period of time. And then I also shared out this form and this chart. So we're going to go over that one now real quickly. So basically, some of these things we've covered before, but we'll talk about the level of government that Federalists really trust, of course, is the strong federal central government, national government, whereas the Republicans trust more local government or state. Their views about the Constitution and interpreting it, reading into it, is going to be another thing that they're going to differ on. So, Federalists, they believe in what is known as implied powers. Implied powers means that there are powers that they believe that were not clearly stated, but meant to be in the Constitution. So we're going to refer to them as loose interpretationalists, and leads to expansion of most of the federal power that we're familiar with today. Republicans, on the other hand, they believed in something known as just strict, absolutely necessary power. That's it. They wanted less government responsibility at the federal level. As far as the types of people that they supported and trusted was also a differing type of situation. Federalists tended to side with more of the educated, property owners, wealthy, and the idea is with the wealthy, they were also educated. They had what they call vested interest. They distrusted the general public because, one, they were not overly educated and felt that they could easily be taken advantage of, whereas Republicans under Jefferson and Madison, they believed that ordinary citizens, as the video says, the yeoman farmer, would prevent the abuses of power that were common in history. So in this presentation, we're going to cover the creation of the first political parties, and then we're going to talk about the election of 1796, the early part of section 8.3. Now, I did share out with you these two small readings concerning the election of 1796. And as you read through it and you were supposed to look at this map and answer these two questions, the end story is that the election of 1796 shows that the United States was not really prepared for its first election after George Washington left the scene. So in 1796, John Adams, Washington's vice president, decides that he is going to run for president, and his vice presidential nominee is Thomas Pinckney. The Democratic Republican, the challenger, is Thomas Jefferson, the idea that one of the two standard bearers of the Republican Party, and his running mate is a guy by the name of Aaron Burr, who is from New York. Fans of Hamilton might recognize his name. But what happened was, the results are clearly right here. So Adams wins more electoral votes, but actually, as it says here, the Constitution got this one thing wrong. They thought that whoever became second place would just become vice president. They did not foresee the emergence that the second place person was probably the opposition candidate and probably would not be happy in the position of vice president. If you look up here to these questions here, the pink area is controlled, and you can sort of see a lot of Adams' support. Now, you have to know a little geography that relates to history. He's from Massachusetts, so it makes sense that he has huge influence in that area. Whereas Jefferson, he is more from the South, and so he wins most all of the southern states. And if you look at Pennsylvania, he wins a majority of votes here in Pennsylvania as well. So the first time we have a president other than Washington, we have a split administration. We have a Federalist president, and we have a Democratic Republican vice president.